So on Fox and Friends, just to set it up, on Fox and Friends, were talking about James Clyburn and the whole defund the police thing. So the reaction from
Really?
yeah. So the reaction
So he just
from
fucking gave them the talking point. Like,
yes, that's exactly what he did by going out there and
that's what
saying,
happens. It's not
yeah,
that, like, activists
because
on the
the
street say defund the police, and
right,
then the Republicans hear that, and then they blame the Democrats
yeah.
for it, who
So
respond to
that's
it
been the
stupidly like
divide.
that.
Well, I mean, that's been the divide up to this
So it's like,
point.
why can't he just explain it? Like, if he has this platform
Uh huh.
to critique this policy that the activists on the street are saying that
Right.
you can't affect, why are you going to take that time to admonish people who aren't going to listen to you? Why not take the time to explain where the activists are coming from and
Right.
just explain it like a grown up instead of this like childish, like he's
Yeah.
fucking 80 years old and he acts like a kid on the schoolyard, like, being trying to like bully the new kid or something,
Right,
right? It's
and
just
this is the tweet from AOC about exactly what you're talking about. This was a call from communities that unfolded in real time. Activists don't focus group. BLM is not the DNC. It's a it's a poll's job. What is a politician's job to own the message? Yeah, it's a politician's job to own their message. By the way, it was effective. NYC is shifting to mental health workers at some 911 calls, and policies change faster than an election cycle.
yeah,
So
hell yeah.
the idea here is that somehow these politicians can control the messaging and control the instinctual reactions and the natural and organic reactions from activists on the ground, and
Hmm.
that so it's a way to go ahead and curtail what was actually being called for, which was defund the police. That wasn't something that was carefully cut up and
Yeah.
manufactured by anybody. The way a lot of these politicians are comfortable operating, and at that point, it is not the smartest thing in the world to go ahead and turn against your own base and feed Republicans their talking points.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what Jim
They're so
Clyburn and
bad.
a lot of them are doing. They're playing right into the
Yeah, they're
hands
so
of these
bad at
people.
politics.
Yes.
So disgusting.
So then this is what you end up with when you have people like Joe Manchin or James Clyburn going out there and saying, "Oh yeah, no, defund the police hurt us." When to all the contrary, evidence to the contrary, it wasn't even true. So let's go to
I
this.
mean, to be fair, like Manchin, his argument was different. Like
Hmm. But
his argument,
let's see.
huh?
House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn is blaming some Democratic election losses on defunding the police movement.
We keep making that mistake, this foolishness about you got to be this progressive or that progressive. That phrase, defund the police, cost Damian Harrison tremendously. Sloganeering kills people. Sloganeering destroys movements. Stop sloganeering.
Well, how about stop doing it? Here to react is the host of the Rubin Report and author of Don't Burn This Book, Think for Yourself in an
Sloganeering.
Age of Unreason, Dave Rubin. Dave, now he says it. All you had to do was stand up to Kamala
He looks
Harris,
like a
who was for
nutcase,
defunding the
man.
police out in Los Angeles. They took millions out, as well as $1 billion out of the police budget in the NYPD, and millions out of Minneapolis. Now he speaks up.
Yeah, this is so typical of what has happened with the left and the sort of internal war between the progressives and whatever is left of a moderate Democrat. And I'm not really sure how much is left, although Clyburn's sort of taking the mantle right there. I mean, look, in effect, nobody except the radicals that want violence on the streets and that want mayhem. Nobody besides that wants the police to be defunded. Even in places, in black communities where crime is high, they want more policing. I mean, there's a lot of evidence of this. You only want less policing if you want chaos, and I think the progressives in many cases, they do want that chaos because they then think that proves
'cause they're just
that
so
somehow
bloodthirsty.
the state is racist and
that loose
that
Antifa.
then that in essence is what allows them to run around and say America is so terrible, look at all of this. But the average person wants law and order. That's just very simple and easily understood by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if there's modernization of policing that could help things get better, everybody wants to do it. Provide the money for that. Extend time in the academy, whatever the cops say and whatever the experts reveal. By the way, in New York, front page, 2,400 people, officers have said, I quit. That's a 25% increase of all last year.
Cops.
So it is a run for the exits because they get no support from this terrible mayor. And if they were so bad, why didn't Jim Clyburn say this earlier? It would have meant a lot for the country. Meanwhile, yesterday, you would never know it, but the Judiciary Chairman, Lindsey Graham, asked Andy McCabe to come in and explain himself to what he was up to during the Russia probe in the 2016 election. Here's a little of what he gave and what he received.
If you knew then what you know now, would you have signed the warrant application in June of 2017 against Carter Page?
No, sir.
Did you
watch the next part too?
Yeah, now that's enough.
Let's talk. Pause it. Let's talk about the.
Yeah, let's go to this. All right, so there's Dave Rubin. He's the lesser grifter. I think if you're gonna go and weigh him against Temple.
It's just like every single thing he says in his argument is bad faith, and it's like the only reason he was able to do that was because, wait a minute, I just lost those.
Hold on.
The only reason he was able to do that was because Clyburn had that fucking response. If Clyburn had said what AOC said, like, there would have been no response from Dave Rubin grifters. What would he say to that? If she's like, you know, we changed 911 to mental health. Like, this is what we're talking about, just explaining to them one simple thing. So then they can do this whole segment where they fearmonger about chaos and violence on the street instead of, you know, entertaining the proposal in a grown-up, mature manner. Like, oh, you know, this does seem like a good idea. Like, we would rather have, you know, we just had a cop shoot a 14-year-old autistic boy. Like, you know. And
that's not the only time that cops have reacted that way to somebody with a mental health issue. It's not an isolated incident. And it's not a bad idea to go ahead and, you know what, let's reallocate some of these funds from SWAT teams and tear gas to mental health and tanks, you know, which, by the way, Joe Biden was part of that whole industry that got built up. But that's an aside. But no, I mean, it's and this whole idea of the radical left. Yeah, I mean, I wish we had that much control.
But and our suggestions are so common sense, like, good things to do.
Yes.
Like, it's not like we're right, you know what I mean? Like, and the people agree with us, and instead of actually discussing that like grown-ups, they just do this whole fear mongering, and the Democrats do it too. Clyburn knows what people are talking about. He doesn't have to act that way. Like, he can explain it like a you know an 80-year-old man should be able to.
Yeah, and at least somebody with that much experience in public life should be able to. I mean, well, and that's exactly
his experience coming up is like activism and stuff too. It's like like people have said, you know, like MLK's message didn't poll test either. I mean, he was leading the civil rights era. Like, that's not up to them. Mm-hmm. Their job is to, if you can use it to your advantage politically. This is what the activists are saying. This is how I can use it. Right? You either do that or you don't. And if you leave it there and just have the implication with no response, it just looks like that, and lets the right do whatever they want with it. Especially when you do, like, Clyburn didn't have to do that. Like, he didn't have to do that publicly. And if he was going to do it publicly, he should have had a better soundbite worked up, right? Like, he was just.
I mean, it's just feeding the right exactly what they want.
And it's just like that's the kind of thing that they shouldn't like. They should have people within the party who are smart enough to know that and not let him go on TV with that kind of talking point. Like,
and then look, and it feeds right into this whole thing that's happened since Biden was announced the winner. The election's barely been called for Joe Biden when the Democratic Party centrists began blaming the party's left for underwhelming results in last week's election, no matter every bit of proof to the contrary. And we've gone over on this show a bunch of different kinds of proof that shows that these the policies that have been pushed out by progressives are overwhelmingly popular.
Let's take a look at that article.
All right. Let's see. Here we go. Biden and the Dems should have buried Trumpism, but they provide no alternative. So, the last week election, Democrats performed terribly despite running during a period of unprecedented crisis against a uniquely unpopular president. Donald Trump's 4 years of demagoguery and corporate giveaways should have been easy to run against, but the Democratic Party is unwilling and unable to pose an alternative. So, I mean, the election has barely been called for Joe Biden when the Democratic Party centrists began blaming the party's left for the underwhelming results in last week's election, no matter every bit of proof to the contrary. Joining the choir was one of Biden's Republican supporters, John Kasich, who lectured the Democrats that if only they had more clearly rejected the hard left, they had been better appealed to Americans who essentially live in the middle. Again, the numbers are pointing to the opposite, a growing polarization and a hollowing out of the center. More important, the middle ground that does exist provides a terrain that should be more favorable to left ideas, as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez rightly pointed out. Every single candidate that co-sponsored Medicare for All in a swing district kept their seat, and every single swing district Democrat that accepted AOC's help with their election operation won, while those who refused her help lost. So you talk about her popularity. So in many states and counties that voted red, referenda passed overwhelmingly to increase the minimum wage, fund public education, decriminalize drugs, and implement rent control. In Mississippi, voters elected to replace their Confederate-era flag. On economic issues, this pattern is even clearer, as the Huffington Post reported, according to the polls. So, I mean, like, you can all go read this article at one point or another.
1 out of every 5 Republicans has economic views.
Yeah. Where were we?
More than the Democrats, more than the Republicans, and hold on, what was that line? I missed it.
Where?
Back up. This includes support for increasing the minimum wage, taxing the rich, and providing robust COVID-19 relief benefits.
Yeah.
While votes are still being tallied in a few states, the likely scenario is that Biden won the election with 306 electoral votes to Trump's 232, with a small but significant popular vote lead of 50.5 to 47.4, some 4 million votes. It's a fairly comfortable margin after the drama of election night the following days, but those margins are nowhere near 92, the last time a Republican incumbent president residing over a recession was ousted. Bill Clinton won that election with 370 electoral votes to Bush's 168, and with 43% to 37% of the popular vote. Ross Perot took the remaining 19%. Obama, too, though he didn't run against an incumbent, finished the party after re-election. He won 365 to McCain's 173 with 53% of the popular vote. Biden's narrow margins in the Electoral College in a contest against the Republican incumbent with historically high disapproval, high unemployment, a declining stock market on the eve of the election, and a pandemic that he spent the final weeks of the campaign conspicuously spreading and advertising his indifference about containing, can't help but make the Democrats nervous about their odds of retaining power in 2024.
All right, let's go. So, so when it comes to this messaging out from the establishment wing of the party, there's no evidence for their position to say that the left is somehow weakening their...
Dude, we didn't even get to that part in the article. We're still setting it up. I want to see.
Right.
He's going to list the stats.
All right, let's go to the stats then.
Depression, dead end. Scroll down. Their flimsy showing, party and candidate out of step. Failure to be an effective opposition party, wasting their time. This is like stuff that, yeah, this is.
Well, look, bro. I mean, look.
This is the long arm line.
Yeah, that's why I said so. Look, the whole thing though is we know the stats when it came to the election results. The swing districts in particular, because they always like to say the left can't win in swing districts. Well, the left policies did win, and when it comes to that, it needs to be an enforcement of the messaging that is winning when it comes to things like Biden losing Florida and $15 minimum wage winning
Yeah.
in Florida.
That's
Then
what the
there's
thing
a
is, like,
problem with the messaging.
yeah, if they had talked to AOC, like, she could have taken even normie Democrats and given them an economic populist
Right.
message. She could have just
Exactly.
been like, okay, you technically you support the $15 minimum wage. Why don't you run on that? Like, you support, like, this kind of expansion to Medicare or whatever. You run on that. Like, just giving them tips for, like, how to not be so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know. It's like they obviously don't want to run on the economic issues. They don't want
Right.
to make that part of their platform, but it's really dumb. It's kind of hard to see how that's not intentional.
It has to be. There's a reason why they keep punching left, despite it helping them electorally. But